Good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Bill Lawson. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. Plus, that you are well this Friday morning. You made it to another Friday. Congratulations. All right, let's go ahead and get this started. Um, this young lady behind me is Riley Gaines. Women's sports advocate Riley Gaines called out White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre over remarks that she made this week about transgender athletes competing in women's sports. On Tuesday, Jean-Pierre claimed that it's dangerous for people to think that male-bodied athletes who identify as women are dangerous to women. Well, what would be the administration's here's what the question was: what will be the administration's what they say to parents out there who have daughters in high school, for example, who are worried that their daughter may have to compete against a male or a person born male, and they could be directly physical athletic competition and worry about their daughter's safety? A reporter asked in the White House briefing room. Now, most of us, because we are thinking people, understood what that meant. That meant, like, what do you say? What do you say to the dad or the mom whose daughter is going to compete in swimming or tennis or uh, any sport that maybe they're trying to get a scholarship for or whatever? Now they're actually competing against a boy. What do you say to them? So this is the gaslighting and the BS from the administration. What you're alluding to is basically saying that transgender kids are dangerous. It sounds like that's what you're saying. You're saying that their female athlete safety is at risk. You're laying out a broad example of an explanation that could potentially happen. That is dangerous. That is dangerous thing that essentially transgender kids we're talking about are dangerous. Jean-Pierre said. That's exactly not what we said. What do you say to the mom or the dad who has been raising this child since she was 6 in some sporting event, that now track and field or whatever, and now we get to the point where it could pay off in some real sense, and now she's got to compete for that scholarship with a boy? She's been doing great against other females, and now you're pitting her against a boy. What do you say to that dad? Like, oh, this fully intact male young man is going to be in the locker room, in the bathroom with your daughter. What do you say to them? Nobody said anything about anything being dangerous, except in prison, where you have these so-called transgendered men, fully intact men, going into women's prisons and raping women and making them pregnant. Other than that actually happening, and some people say, well, how that doesn't really happen very often. It needs to happen once to you or someone you love, once. All it takes. This idea, well, that barely ever happens. So what? You could have a situation where it never happens. You could have situations where a young lady never loses a scholarship or an opportunity to compete because she would never compete against a boy, ever. You could have a situation that way to where it never happens. And if you let it happen one time, you failed. You've absolutely failed. Riley, who competed against and tied against transgender swimmer Will Thomas last year. We talked about this here on the show, where they tied, and the NCAA gave the trophy to the the trophy for the winner of this women's event to the dude. What the heck, right? She slammed her remarks on Twitter. Riley Gaines tweeted, "When they say inclusion, just know what they really mean: exclusion. This message sends this sends the message to all women that our safety doesn't matter. They don't care. Don't care. Nor does our privacy. doesn't care. Our fairness, they don't care. Our equal opportunity, they don't care. Or just our dignity. The misogyny is slapping us across the face. Now, one of the questions, and I like to ask questions. Where's the National Organization for Women? You know how we couldn't get them to shut up in the beginning of the Trump presidency? The Washington march, march on women's march on Washington. Where are they? Why are they quiet? So they're getting paid off. That's why they're getting paid off, and they're terrified to speak out against um, the LGBTQ mafia. They're terrified, and they're getting paid off. Because you wonder, don't you? Gaines currently serves as a spokeswoman for an independent women's forum and focuses on the issue of male athletes in women's sports. And in an in-person interview with someone at Town Hall February, Gaines explained that allowing transgender athletes to compete in women's sports is a slippery slope. Within the past year, in terms of progress, there has not been a clear solution to the problem of transgender athletes in hand. There is a solution. No, you must compete as your biological sex. I'm sorry if you think that if you feel today that you're a chick, you're not. Sorry. Fix your mental mental malfunction, and then go back to the sport. This whole idea with Will Thomas is just 3 years in a row. Will swam on the Penn swimming team, men's swimming team, and he was average, actually a little less than average. And now he's transitioning to the women's team, and now he's now he's winning NCAA trophies. Come on, nobody buys that crap. This continues, the slippery slope. It's truly the only a matter of time before one transgender athlete winning a national title in a women's category becomes 3 and 5 and 10 and so on. It'll just continue. Of course it will, because that's exactly what they want. I think truthfully it will become the integrity of women's sports will be lost. There won't be any women's sports. There won't be any women's sports. There'll only be dudes who think they're chicks competing against the very few women who are left in women's sports. It'll destroy it. During a Q&A at the U.S. Capitol, Gaines explained that female athletes were forced to share locker rooms with Will Thomas last year, and we talked about that. They weren't told beforehand. They never had they never was given the dignity of a meeting that Thomas wasn't there at to prepare. And suddenly there was this dude, fully intact, Frankfurter and Beans dude, in the locker room. 6'4", pulls his pants down, watching you undress, and nobody is willing to stick up for you. This week, a new Gallup poll found that compared to 2021, a smaller percentage of Americans support allowing transgender athletes to compete on teams that align with their gender identity. And a growing number of Americans believe that changing one's gender is morally wrong rather than morally acceptable. At the new Gallup poll, 69% of Americans believe transgender athletes should only be allowed to play on sports teams that match their birth gender. That's it. And that's a 7-point change from 2 years ago, May. In May 2021, 34% of people said they should be able to play on teams that match their identity. In 2 years later, only 26% of people say they should. Well, because I think people saw what the damage was. People hadn't seen what the damage was. Republicans, Democrats, and Independents are all modestly less supportive of transgender athletes playing on current identity teams than a year ago. Gallup's write-up stated. The result: these changes that Democrats are now divided on allowing transgender athletes to play on either male or female teams, while in 2021, more were in favor than opposed. Large majorities of independents, 67%, and Republicans, 93%, remain opposed to giving transgender athletes a choice of competing on male or female teams. If you're a dude, you gotta compete against the dudes. That's all there is to it. No, and I guess this is the hill that I'm gonna die on. I am not willing to budge. You can't get me to budge. You can't get me to budge on this. You can't. And they shouldn't get you to budge either. Not at all. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Well, folks, again, I want to ask you guys, I want to ask you something. I want to ask you if you find something that you think is fun and you enjoy, especially like on a podcast or something, how much do you share it? Or do you just keep that stuff to yourself? If you don't keep that stuff to yourself, do me a favor. Tell people about this podcast. We really appreciate it. All right. I don't know how well that worked, but we tried it, didn't we? All right. An FBI source is now saying the Bidens coerced Burisma. You remember Burisma? Burisma is the oil company in the Ukraine that had Hunter Biden on their board. Hunter Biden didn't know as much about petroleum or oil as, I don't know, this coffee cup. But he's making millions of dollars now, right? But the FBI source, they said the Bidens coerced Burisma into paying them $10 million in bribes. There are new revelations about the bribery scheme involving Joe Biden and his son Hunter. The president is facing the smoking gun evidence that he is compromised and corrupt, something that many of us have known since Bobulinski divulged details of a failed deal with the Chinese in October 2020. The story that was suppressed by the media and got the New York Post locked out of his social media accounts for days. We now have this Ukrainian bribery operation where Joe and Hunter were paid $5 million each in 2015 and 16. A confidential FBI source told the Bureau the details in an FD 1023 report recently released to the White House Oversight Committee members. The source revealed that the co-founder of Burisma Holdings made the payments and had a ledger of them. And recorded over a dozen phone calls with then Vice President Biden and his crack cocaine addicted son Hunter. The co-founder is rumored to be an asset for Russian foreign intelligence, and now he says he felt coerced by the Biden to dole out the cash. He also wasn't far off regarding his projection of when the scheme would be exposed. This is from the Federalist. The Federalist has now learned that the FD 1023 reported CHS saying that the Bidens, quote, coerced, end quote, Zolochevsky to pay bribes. Sources familiar with the investigation explain on the context of Zolochevsky's statements, and context further bolsters the CHS's reporting. In the FD 1023 in June 30th, 2020, the confidential human source summarized early meetings he had with Zolechky, according to the CHS in 2015 and 2016 timeframe. The CHS, who was providing, that means confidential source, who was providing advice told Burisma, the Burisma owner, to stay away from the Bidens. Then, after Trump defeated Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential contest, the CHS asked Josefsky if he was upset Trump won. He said allegedly he told CHS he was dismayed by Trump's victory, fearing an investigation will reveal his payments to the Biden family, which included a $5 million payment to Hunter Biden and a $5 million payment to Joe Biden. According to the CHS, the Burisma executive bemoaned the situation, claiming that the Bidens had, quote, coerced, end quote, him into paying the bribes. The CHS responded that he had hoped so Jeffsky had taken precaution to protect himself. He then allegedly detailed the steps that he had taken to avoid detection, stressing he had never paid, quote, the big guy, end quote, directly, and that would have taken some 10 years to unravel the various money trails. It was only that he mentioned in the audio recording that he had made these conversations he had had with Hunter and Joe Biden, according to the CHS. Yes. So this is the timing. This is the timing. That now, instead of watching this and asking questions about this, about the big guy, we are concerned that Trump has 37 counts of mishandling confidential papers when he, left the White House. Something that we found some confidential top secret papers in this dude's garage, in Joe Biden's garage. He had a green Mustang. You should lock his ass up for having a green Mustang. But anyway, the FD 1023 report was a fight as the FBI refused to turn it over to Congress. Only after the House Republicans threatened to hold Director Chris Wray in contempt did they relent, exposing solid evidence that Biden was corrupt. Hours later, Trump was indicted and the classified documents investigation. And this story vanished from the news cycle. Yes, the timing is not lost on anyone. Not at all. Not at all. What do you think? Write it down in the comments. If you think that we're talking about some things that people would care about, please share this broadcast. Please share. Like, share, comment, all that stuff. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you'll know when we post. All right, we got to get out of here, make room for somebody else. So until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.